Thank you for coming to this session. Um, this is my first time attending DSW and presenting. So I'm going to get us started and then I'll talk about why the session looks like the way it looks like. So the title is Last Mile Graduation Challenge Using Credential Pathways. We're supposed to do this, so make sure you take a minute to read the slides. We are thanking our sponsors, and then sponsors, and then more sponsors. There we go. So I am Geeta Verma. I'm actually a professor of STEM education at the University of Colorado, Denver, and also founder of a company called LiveDax. And the reason this presentation looks like this, because that's what I do. I talk about the work I do as a professor. And I'd never attended Denver Startup Week, so I didn't understand how the sessions work. Looking back, if I had renamed the session as EdTech Innovation, maybe, and the timing of it. Because if educators want to come to this session, they probably will come in the evening, and this is in the middle of the day, so that Michael pointed that out to me, so appreciate your input, so I can probably share that with the DSW team. Okay, so the work I'm doing it is in the area of student success and lived and learned experiences. So this is a student profile, Alexis. She is a sophomore. She's very active in co-curricular activities, emerging bilingual student. Her risk of dropping out from school is low socioeconomic status and first-generation college student. So she doesn't have any kind of pathways to kind of how to navigate college. So Alexis is not alone. This is a problem that we have at the national level. So US high school graduation rate is 86%. Nationally, 1 out of every 6 students drop out of high school. And then in Colorado, we have 81%, and low-income students and under-resourced students have a higher dropout rate. The same problem happens in higher education, and I'm just showing, this is a busy slide, so that's why I'm going to point your attention to the boxes that are circled in black. Or if you look at the CU data, this is the Boulder is 72% graduation rate, Colorado Springs 45%, and Denver 44% overall graduation rate. And if you look at four-year graduation rates by race and ethnicity, then you'll see that it actually gets worse. So graduation rates are a big thing both for high school and college students. Why we should be talking about this? Because in January 2010, US economy has added 11.6 million jobs, and 99% of those jobs have gone to workers with at least some college education. So if we don't have high school students graduating and coming to college for some college education, and it doesn't have to be 4 years, it could be 2 years, then there's this disparity in economic justice. I'm going to share some more data. If we increase the national graduation rate by 6% to 90%, these are some of the numbers that we should be paying attention to, right? There's a lot of information, but I can think about 3.1 billion in additional earnings. That's a lot of money. And we can make that happen if we just help our students to graduate, right? Colorado, if we increase by 13% to 90%, that's additional 96.6 million in earnings, 1.1 million in tax and state and local tax, 79.3 million in spending. So why should we care about this data? We should care because it has significant impact on national and state economy, personal economic well-being. So there's this element of economic justice that we have to talk about. And then we talk about, this has become like a term or phrase that's been overused, creating a just and equitable, that's kind of losing its meaning now. Everybody's talking about it, right? But that is true. One of the ways we can do that is to make sure that there's economic parity between different groups of people in a society. So I want to now talk about the graduation barriers and impact. So there are a lot of graduation barriers. I've listed a few. The first one is that we do not recognize students' experiences, skills, and knowledge. So being a professor in STEM education, I've done this work where we talk about funds of knowledge, social capital, right? Funds of knowledge is the knowledge that students bring to the classroom, and yet we don't have any way of documenting that, acknowledging that, credentialing that, and valuing that, right? And so we have this deficit perspective about students saying, they are not doing good in studies because blah, A, B, C, right? If we can figure out a way to document that, we can do something about it. We also have gateway courses. I'm a STEM education professor. I know all about it. And then we have the financial barrier that, the impact is low retention and completion rates. I showed you the data. The students at CU, basically, we are looking at 70 to 40% of our students are graduating, and then rest of them are walking away with credits and a lot of student debt, right? So that's a big issue. Extended time from graduation, and this is the last mile challenge that I'll talk about. So students are getting close to graduation, they're missing 3 to 5 college credits, right? And they cannot figure this out. They run out of money, they run out of motivation, they run out of gas, and they need those 3 to 5, and then it's non-completion, right? So that's another thing. So then it goes from 4 years to 5 years to 6 years, which means extra money for the students. And at the end of it, are they actually benefiting from that college degree, right? And then it adds the financial burden on the students. So the work I'm doing, and I'm going to talk about that, is interrupting patterns by broadening the notion of achievement. So achievement could be academic achievement, which we all know. We have our college courses, we have our domain expertise, right? But can we think about beyond content courses? And so you must be wondering how? How do we do that? Can we find a way to document lived and learned experiences, I call them LNL, L2, and then tagging the embedded competencies as essential life skills, right? So Colorado Department of Education now requires high school students to have a portfolio of essential life skills as part of the high school graduation. And this movement is happening nationally, but this is happening internationally as well. So let's see an example. This is an example of an experience a student submitted. So I'm going to read it for you. The experience took place at my other place. I was with some strangers. I was at DMV and saw someone trying to ask for the bathroom in ASL. I knew what they were saying, so I stood up and helped them find the bathroom. I learned that it does not matter where you are and what you're doing. Helping someone who needs it is important. I would not do anything differently. So if you look at the responses and you tag it back, they're responding to a prompt that we've provided, right? So we provide 5 prompts, and we get this. And then we're able to tag it with essential life skills, right? So this is the upper level. Observe situations differently, carefully, understands needs and well-being, takes initiative, learns or uses other language, right? If you want to go a little bit deeper, because this is the framework we have created, you can actually go deeper and see that we are giving, kind of acknowledging their social emotional skills, academic professional behavior, global citizenship, which is a cross-cultural language beat, and then the innovation and critical thinking, which is intellectual openness, right? So this is very difficult to measure what is innovation and critical thinking, but intellectual openness is one of those things, right? So here's another example. This is happening in a STEM space. So they're talking about advanced robotics class, and I'm going to give you a minute to read. And then we can code the data and assign them essential life skills credentials, right? So my question is, could we document experiences in plain sight? They're there for us to document, to earn essential skills, life skills, micro-credentials, And can we convert those and stack those micro-credentials into formal college credit? Ta-da! These are the college credits: EDFN, LiveDex, and 21st Century Skills, Introduction, LiveDex, 21st Century Skills, Environmental and Civic Literacy, Academic Professional Skills, Collaboration, Communication, Innovation, Critical Thinking, Digital Literacy, Social Emotional, and Global Literacy. So I want to talk a little bit about the work that I'm doing through LiveDex. LiveDex is an online equity platform, livedex.com. And through the platform, we are able to allow students to document and credential lived and learned experiences. We're able to create courses for learned experiences that organizations cannot credential. I'll give you an example. This past summer, we worked with a state science center. They offered a 6-week innovation program for marginalized and under-resourced students. And as part of the STEM program, they were creating museum exhibits that could be on the floor of the museum. And the center staff really wanted to credential the experience because they had no opportunity. We were able to take the framework we had because essential life skills are embedded in every experience, whether it's STEM, non-STEM, language, any of those. And we were able to create 4 one-credit-hour courses, and the students were able to earn 4 college credit through that program because we were able to do that work. So, intersection of lived and learned, how we are able to do this? We've done the hard work of qualitative research and data annotation, and we're able to do that using machine learning algorithm that we have embedded in the system that can automate the process of credentialing these students. So it's instant feedback, and it's not burdening our colleagues in K through 12 or higher education. So it's basically documenting and credentialing these experiences without creating extra work, which I am very attuned to, being a higher education faculty myself. Whenever new things come to our table, it's like there's another extra thing that I have to think about. How do I accommodate that in my schedule, right? We have a patented ML technology for that, and we're hoping that through this, we will create an inclusive and equitable world by allowing users, students, whoever those people, to bring those experiences into. So you saw the ASL experience. We get a lot of those experiences from students. So we are at the intersection of EdTech and HR Tech. The goal here is I want to take the educational credentials that are essential life skills. In industry, they would call them soft skills. In academia, we frown upon that term, right? We will not call them. But we can take the same credentials and make them employer-facing. So when students are going out on the job market, they can use the same credentials and use it as their soft skill credentials for their interviews, right? And these are data-driven credentials. It's not something that they are contemplating. They can actually use the data and talk about it, right? So I thought we should do this activity together. So you have your cell phone, any of those devices. Take a minute to write down all your educational achievements and all your work experiences. And if you have paper, do it on paper, please. Let's take 2 minutes, 5 minutes. Because the next step we'll probably need a little bit more time. So list all the educational and workforce credentials, experiences that you have, right? Make a list. And once we've done, I would actually like for people to share. Ready? Almost? All right, who wants to share first? You just have to read off your credentials, not like you're sharing your bank information with me. Sure.
Work experiences is residential treatment centers, day treatment centers, special education teachers, special needs summer camp, teaching special needs in prison, teaching mild, moderate special needs in DPS, teaching English language arts, ELD, in KIP charter schools, leading the special education department, and then an instructional designer.
That's a lot. Anybody else wants to go? I can see.
Oh, wonderful. All right, so I had concurrent enrollment from Red Rocks, and then I did a year at Metro. I have like 200 credits from DU at this point, but no degree. Um, and then I work in tech, and so I have arguably probably 100 certificates, which I don't want to go through. And then as far as work experience, I'm on the STEM CT advisory board for Jefferson County, founded a company. I was the executive assistant to CEO. That was my first job. Worked with DPS, and then I've worked with NASA as a Hunch Partnership, which is a CT STEM partnership thing that they have. There you go.
Thank you. Let's have one more person, one additional person, okay?
I have a bachelor's degree in education, a master's degree in curriculum instruction. Then I went on to get my principal licensure. And then from work experiences, I started with most recent and went all the way back. So principal, license, or educator, dean, AP, instructional coach, principal, partnerships manager, and then back to my college ones were nanny, bookseller, Bed Bath & Beyond, stall mucker, sales consultant.
Yeah, that's fabulous. Okay, so you get a sense of your, this journey. So next, so we're going to do like a thought experiment, sort of. What I want you to do is now, in your mind, draw your life map. So you can choose your whole lifespan or a period of your lifespan. And what would a life map look like? Something like this. So if I had given you actually a poster paper and a pen, you would draw it, but we don't have that here. So we're going to try to do that in our mind's eye. I'm going to give you again 5 to 7 minutes, and then we'll have some of you share, and then we'll see how the two kind of connect or not. Yeah? So last time you gave me a list, this time you're going to give me a story, a narrative, right? So I, was born, blah, 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 and you're going to give me a story. we ready? I think Michael is ready. I'm going to open it to others if you would like to take the opportunity to share your life story.
Sure. Yeah, so it makes a lot of sense after thinking about going through the first exercise, but I grew up in the DC suburbs, so really high achievement oriented, but had parents that exposed me to a lot of different things, helped develop my interests, but we sort of was on that track, worked in DC, got my master's, worked in a few internships, worked for consulting firm, and then left the DC area wanting to sort of have a more balanced, getting to have those interests, have time for those interests, and then and also further my career. And then just this year took that even a step further and moved to the Denver area. So it all kind of makes sense and ties together. I hope that's what you were looking for.
Great. Anybody else?
Thank you. So I was born in the United Kingdom, went to school in the United Kingdom, and then went to university in Wales. Got my first job actually back at my old school in England again, and then jumped on a plane 5 weeks before 9/11 and landed in North Carolina with 2 suitcases and had an incredible life experience in education. Worked in a middle school. Spent 2 years in North Carolina and then went back to England as part of the contract that I had been employed with to exchange my culture, but loved America so much that I returned to Colorado in 2004, and I've been here ever since in Douglas County School District as a teacher, a dean, an assistant principal, a principal. Got my master's over here, my bachelor's in England or in Wales, and have discovered many issues in public education along the way that I'm finally super grateful to be able to hopefully have seen a problem and found a solution. And we are opening a new school. And I'm excited to have the opportunity to learn from you today. And I think my life has absolutely divinely led me to this day today.
That's awesome. Anybody else wants to share their life story in narrative? Okay, so the next thing, thank you for sharing. That takes a lot of guts, and next thing I want to do is think about the listing you did and the narrative you did and what it may have missed, those listings and narrative. Did it miss little learnings along the way that were not captured by your credentials and your certificates and all of those things? So, right? The things that you would have wanted to be noted for or gotten a something for, but there was nothing, so you got your certificate, you went to the university, educational institutions, right? Let's think about those 3 to 5 or 2 to 3 experiences.
Okay, so I didn't include this, and I never include this on my list because, well, I did include executive assistant because we finally gotten to a point where I've talked to the guy and we figured out that's what we're going to call me. But basically, when I was 12 years old, I was selling pumpkins by my neighbor's house, and he ended up hiring me in as his executive assistant to a pretty big company because he didn't want to hire a real person. And so I spent the next basically 6 years of my life learning under a pretty big company CEO, all of which, technically speaking, was not real experience, but it was incredibly helpful and gave a lot of information. So.
I don't know if I did this strategically the first time that I was just sharing my life story, but I neglected to share that in 2012 I got married, and in 2016 I had my first son, who is now 6, 2019, I had my second son, who is going to be 3 in December. And from that point onwards, they have completely impacted my career path and my decision making aligned with my career. So.
So I went a little bit of a different route and thought about what were those 3 to 5 lived experiences, and really along the lines of I wrote down resilience and failure, alienation to belonging, and this idea of global connectedness were all things that I've learned about life, but not necessarily captured in a document or a certificate.
Did you have something?
Sure. Some things I identify were the ability to adapt and be flexible from moving from one place to another, navigating worlds of oppression and using my voice and mind to advocate for needs and social change, and then just the social and emotional regulation that it takes to regulate yourself enough to teach in a classroom full of students and regulate them as well. Yeah.
So what I'm trying to get at is that our life happens in big moments, and it also happens in small moments. And we learn in big moments, we also learn in small moments. But the challenge is that the big moments have kind of positioned themselves in a way that they shape our identities so much that we get indoctrinated into what the society is telling us, right? And we kind of try to move in that path. If we were to open up those small spaces and help our youth understand what those small spaces mean and what skills are embedded in those small spaces, I'll give you examples of the narratives that we receive in our platform. Students will talk about how they cooked dinner for their parents so the parents could have a date night. It's a small moment. It's not going to be documented anywhere else, but we can credential that experience, right? We have students, so in the summer, we actually did some research. We're actually doing some research with that group. So I have one of my doctoral students who's leading this research. So we wanted to understand, so the STEM piece is big because we know a lot of jobs are going to be in STEM, and we also know a lot of students of color and under-resourced students don't end up going in STEM areas and don't pursue STEM majors or careers for that reason. And in my work as a STEM education professor, when I was working with the NSF grants, we were bringing really fun, cool activities to students. Some of them will engage, some of them won't engage. And that made me take a step back, like, what is going on? We needed to work with the students to prepare them to engage with STEM, because STEM could be challenging for students. If we're not teaching the skills of resiliency or any of those things, these students will walk away from STEM and not engage. We also let them know that you already have that. When you ride a bike and you fall and you pick up, you're showing some persistence there. You can bring the same skill set to STEM, right? So that's where this work was sitting. And so what I wanted to do was, how do I let these students know about the embedded skills in their life, lived experiences, right? And then how do we credential those? And then how do we then bring those to actually occupy space with formal academic credentials? So our partnership with University of Colorado, those courses that you've seen are at University of Colorado. That's where students come and earn their college credit and kind of walk away with these college credits that can be now used in the programs of study. So they're part of program of study for their college degree. So this is what I'm talking about. How do we bridge this gap of big experiences and small experiences, and helping students understand that their small experiences have as much value as big experiences, especially if you're coming from minority background where the majority kind of narrative is that you have to be this way or you have to behave this way, but your life is this way and nobody's acknowledging that, right? So the next conversation I want to have is, how do we bridge this gap? We're trying to do that with LiveDAX. And what value does it bring to you, the educational institutions, employers, and society. So one of the things I want to share with you with the education institutions, so we have now launched a pilot with CU Denver. So we have integrated LiveDex in the first year experiences courses, success courses through Canvas. So the reflections are assignments in the course, right? And students are doing these success courses because part of this is to set them up to succeed in college. And they can come to Canvas and they can reflect on the experiences, and then we credential them, and they get a they've completed, so the instructor doesn't have to do the extra work of grading the assignments because it's automated through the platform, right? And so it becomes part of this coursework saying, I am learning these things, I'm earning credentials for learning these things, and I'm going to earn college credit. And then later on, I'm going to use the same credentials to take myself to an employer and use those credentials to land a job or any of those things. So that's the education side. But I want to open it to, especially what value does it bring to you as an individual if there was such a tool available to you when you were younger?
My initial reaction is not just for me, but how empowering. I think that we as humans often struggle to find the word that accurately captures what we've just experienced. And it sounds like you have helped to create a gap where you can actually say to a child, to a student, that wasn't just learning to ride a bike, that was all of these skills, and you failed forward, and it's a huge success. And so we're just adding value to what we've been taking for granted, and we're naming it. And I think that there's a big issue in how we don't name things, and therefore they don't exist.
I think that one big thing for me personally is growing up, it was very obvious that you could learn just as well outside of the classroom. I was always self-taught in almost everything I've been involved in my life. I have a good amount of college classroom time now, but the actual knowledge usually came from somewhere else before that. And being able to quantify and explain that to other people, as well as having the opportunity to encourage new students to do the same and to understand those learned experiences in their own way, I think will be a really cool ad.
I think this reminds me a lot of what's happening in gifted talented programs currently, where they're looking at students, not just are you gifted or advanced academically, but in different areas they're also looking at are you gifted and talented in arts and music and STEM, and I forget there's 4 or 5 different categories that teachers can say, oh, I've seen these skills in students, and how can we advance that or use that to advance other parts of their education experience. So it's interesting seeing it at the gifted and talented level, but not everyone has access to that. And most students of color don't have access to the gifted and talented programs. So, yeah.
Thank you. So I was talking about the Science Center research we are doing. And so some of the work in my research is primarily with minoritized students and underrepresented youth to get them interested in STEM. And so this particular research partner, we have done some work, we've published some work, and we knew what was working in the program. So when we introduced this extra layer of them reflecting on their weekly STEM experiences, and then we went back and asked them about STEM identity, because STEM identity is a big research topic, and we wanted to find out what in the program was contributing to the STEM identity. So we gave them options, so based on program activities, like presenting their work to public. We talked about prototyping. We talked about reflection in the platform. We gave them like 4 options, and we said, why don't you choose the top 2 and tell us why they are? And the top 2 they chose, many students, not all, but most of the students, was presenting their STEM ideas to the public and reflecting on their failures during the week or successes on Fridays, because that was the reflection day. And the way they talked about was, earlier I would our prototype is failing, and I would get discouraged because I'm the lead for that group. But then I came back and reflected, and it gave me an opportunity to kind of brainstorm, like, what would I do differently? So I had a plan moving forward, and that gave me hope, and that helped with my STEM identity. So that was pretty powerful coming from STEM area, because this is pretty agnostic, but I had not designed it for STEM. Eventually my goal is to take it to STEM programs and have students reflect, because I think it can help with STEM identity if we implement it in a very thoughtful manner, right? So I just wanted to share that with you. And what about employers and society? Like, how could it benefit employers?
So we changed our interview process this year, and instead of trying to isolate and find marketable skills, traits, characteristics, we really started to focus on values. And so if we could align with common values as we did recruitment, then would that help us down the road? Everything else is coachable, right? But values are where you hit your conflict and where things fall apart. And so to have something like this where somebody can identify, these are the values that I bring to the table through my lived experiences, would help make them so much marketable, and also I think build this idea of an identity within a company or an organization to move forward.
You articulated better than I do. So thank you for that. But that's exactly what I'm trying to do here, is to help youth learn about themselves and value system. Eventually, we want to offer them, like, based on your profile, looks like you are interested in these areas, not like one, like these. And these jobs could be good fit for you based on so that's in the works, we're not there. But that's what becomes like a value added for a youth, because where do they go? Like, they can talk to their college counselor, they can talk to guidance counselors, they can talk to the parents, but it's not data-driven, and it's not something based on their lived experiences, right? And for the employer, the way I think about is because we are teasing out embedded skills in people that were not on the table. So for an employer, then they can hire people and they can become more equitable hiring firms, because now we can bring people of color, women, those to the table, saying these people are demonstrating these skills, right? So in addition to all the other things, this could be used as a hiring tool as well as a data set in your hiring practices, right? So that's how we are thinking about it. And in terms of society, this is an impact work. My hope is that we will continue to look at our AI and see if the AI has biases. How can we fix those biases? Because that's a big criticism of AI and ML, and we're very aware of that. So my ML colleagues both are PhD, and we've already presented this work at professional conferences. But that's because moving forward, a lot of this is going to get automated. Fortunately, unfortunately, I don't know. I have mixed feelings about it. But if we are not at the table, somebody else is developing those systems, and we have no say on those systems. So I'd rather be at the table doing this work and add to the conversation, right? So I think that's all I have for you. So thank you for coming. I appreciate your support. Small group, but mighty. And yeah, that's the platform. Look forward to check it out, and you can reach out to me. Thank you. And because I'm in higher education and I have colleagues in higher education, we're trying to transfer these credits to their community college, and we're trying to create an MOU, because that's the easiest way to do this. So I do not know how far we will go, but that's the goal. So I've talked to a couple of colleagues, and they're like, yeah, we could make it happen. And the reason being is that higher education institutions, most of them want to become more equity-driven, equity-centered, right? They also want to allow students to bring college credit because the enrollments are going down, and they want to recruit students. So that could be incentive saying, oh, if you're bringing these 3 to 5, I will allow because if you come here, right? So the way things are positioning, I think it'll be doable, but I can't say with certainty if that will happen.
How many students have you ran through the process so far?
We have about 2,000 students using the platform, and we have assigned about 150 college credits so far. We have not engaged with employers. I'm looking to recruit a pilot partner. Yes, because that will be a big one. So if you have ideas,
And I can't wait to tell everyone about it, but I'm just wondering if you've had any pushback, and what I'm really getting at is how have you handled that pushback? Because I want to be able to share what you're sharing.
yes. And when I launched this, that's what I thought actually. And so I always came prepared. But fortunately, whenever I've presented, people have really valued it because they feel that there's a gap between formal credentials and lived experiences. And to document that, and you get credentials, but you also get personalized credentials. So your profile is not going to be similar to the other profile. The question I do get is, how do you prevent students from cheating? And my question is, so I asked them, I said, try creating an experience that you've not had. Create one, and then create hundreds of those. It's not easy. When I present to students, I tell them it will serve you not to cheat here because your profile would be a true reflection of who you are. And you want that because when you go out in the college admission or workforce, you don't want your profile to be a mismatch with you because you will lose credibility. So the system is kind of designed that way, but we have put some systems in place where people can't just copy and paste. The ML catches that. Having said that, because we're working with youth, students try all kinds of stuff, so we have to be prepared. But I always tell students not to do that because this is not a grade. You're not getting a grade. And I always tell everybody this is not an assessment tool, it's an educative tool. So you are learning about yourself through a tool. So the more honest you are, the better it is for you. And you're not getting A, B's, or C's, right? So we do give college credit grades, but you have to reach the threshold of the number of credentials. But it's basically you're just documenting your experiences, and then for the learned experiences, we can package it as a college credit, just like we did for. So we have 2 different pathways.
What's your revenue model for long-term growth for this kind of product? Are you doing?
So right now it's a B2B. So we're working with school districts, public schools, and higher institutions, and informal institutions like the Science Center, and then this other organization that trains teachers in different. So we work with them. And the other revenue we have is we have a revenue share with the university. So this number of students we bring and the college credit, we get a piece of that pie as well. The 4 the top courses that they get college credit are the 1010, 1030, 1060, and 1080. Because you think about it, social emotional are embedded in all. Academic professionals, kind of a lot of stuff that our students report are there, right? The first one is an introduction course. We pull all the credentials because we want them to see how it works. And then the innovation critical thinking, Surprisingly, our students earn a lot of those credentials. The syllabus are already approved through CU, and we give the option of A and B, and we tell students go for A. So keep doing the work and go for A. So they actually get a letter grade. It's not pass and fail.
Do you build a portrait based on what's being surfaced for them through that credentialing process?
Yes, you can stay back and I'll show you. Yes, yes, I can show you the platform. This is a small and mighty group. I'm telling you, I love it.
How have you thought about bringing this into secondary and middle school level as far as experiences, especially high school?
So this is already in high school, 13 plus, because that's what we can have, 13 plus. So it's already designed for high school and college students.
Is it through the college pathways or career pathways program through CPT, or how are you guys getting, for 13 plus, how are they getting eligible for college credit?
So the college credit, so we mostly have 9th to 12th grade students, right? And the college credit they get in 9th grade, apparently they don't expire. That's what CU Denver tells me. So they can have a college credit in 9th grade. This is essential life skills, right? It's not like algebra or math or any of those things. So they can hang on to it, and then when they go to college, they can take it with them.
And is it based on their whole profile, or can they add, like, okay, so now I have this new experiences I'm talking to y'all, going back and adding to the credits that they earn?
Say that again.
Is it based, so like, they have to fill out whatever, right, and then you come up with how much credits that they would get based off of this? Can they then go back and update their profile?
Oh, yes. And it's not limited to semesters. You can earn a college credit. You can become eligible for a college credit in fall and earn it in summer or spring. If you come back a year later, you can do it. It's because the college credit are credit for prior learning. So we are saying, yes, you're eligible, and then you come to the university website and you earn college credit, right? So the science center piece was credit for prior learning, in the sense that they already did the work for those 6 week STEM program. Here, you're doing the credit for prior learning in life in general, and so you have two pathways, the reflection pathway and the learned pathway. So lived and the learned pathway. You can do both different pathways and earn college credit.
Do you have plans to get into other universities? So what's your plans to get into other universities and expand it to?
That's a great question. I think what I'm trying to do is package in a way that fits within a university system and doesn't disrupt what they're doing. Because these credentials are through our school, and so these are EDFN, Ed Foundation's credentials, right? They are not in class or media or engineering or any of those things, right? So if we were to work, so we are working with student success teams, those both at the high school level and at the college level, right? If we're working with the student success teams, and so at CU Denver, the student success team has integrated this in the first year experiences, right? This other place we're talking to, they're going to integrate this in every course. And they'll be like, you're going to reflect twice or thrice a semester. But when you're doing it in 10 different courses, you have like 30 reflections coming in, because it captures the breadth of their experiences. And so that's the way to go into academia, is talking about, we integrate these in different courses. You don't have to do the grading, right? Because the grading is done by the AI. And then the credentialing is done by whichever, So it doesn't disrupt anything, because if you have worked in academia, it takes a long time for things to move or shift, because we want the quality, we want the robustness, and I completely get it. So that's how we have been able to do at CU Denver. So I'm trying to do the pilot and have a model. Then I'm going to talk to a couple of my colleagues who are already in leadership positions, say, hey, Once we have a couple of case studies, then we can present to other higher education institution and then say, hey, are you interested? We're not there, but thank you. You all are thinking so far ahead. Oh, what are you, sorry. That's, okay. I mean, you're thinking hard. Like, really, I can tell. Like, you're like thinking hard. So I'm loving having these thought partners. I'm going to give you my card so you can stay in touch. And I would love for you to be part of a core team or whatever. If you are interested, have time, any of those things. All right. Thank you.